Ladies and gentlemen, I'm simply reporting the news and giving my viewpoint abiding by YouTube policies. The Wall Street Journal Spotify CEO apologizes to employees for Joe Rogan Backlash, says he will not silence the star podcaster. And this is Fox. Spotify won't be silencing Joe Rogan amid controversy. Newsweek Spotify CEO Daniel Ek addresses Joe Rogan's hurtful words. CNN, of course, Spotify CEO condemns Rogan's use. Okay, but says company won't be silencing. Now, this is my viewpoint on what took place. It is, of course, yes, always wrong for anyone who is not African American or black to use that word. Yes, I agree with that 100%. So, and Joe Rogan does as well. He apologized and he stated what I believe and very likely what you believe. It is always wrong. There's never a context. You can that's another discussion, but there's never really a context to use the word at all. That being said, if the viewpoint or the maxim or the tenet or the law, the social norm is you're not free from consequences. You're free to say what you want, but you're not free from consequences. So if that's the mentality, you're not free from consequences. That paradigm of thought becomes absolutely meaningless when you pick and choose who is to receive consequences and who doesn't receive consequences. So if this is a principle or a rule of conduct or a truth that you are going to level condemnation and judgment and you're going to pontificate and give these long sermons about morality, then you better make sure that anyone who says anything hurtful, offensive, gets the same treatment, and that never happens. Do you know who also used that word? Hunter Biden. Go look it up. And he said other things like just as or even more hurtful. Actually, more hurtful. You know who did worse? I mean, if you want to look at Jimmy Kimmel, okay, you can't even find the skit that he did because what they do is they bury and they completely erase from history their indiscretions, okay? Should Whoopi Goldberg have been fired? No. She was suspended, but others have faced worse consequences. And I'm a Jewish American. Do I think Whoopi Goldberg is anti-Semitic? No. Did she say something that it could be viewed as being that? Yes. We live in a society, this is the French Revolution of political correctness. The left is devouring its own, or Democrats, or liberal Democrats, or what. People to the left of the political divide are devouring their own. And this is while they're trying to devour everyone else. The thing is, though, they don't level the same consequences. So whereas they'll condemn and judge their political side, you won't see the exact same consequences. So they're devouring their own, but only to a certain point, while condemning and judging and pontificating and turning the outrage meter to 1,000,000 when it's a political opponent. Hit subscribe to this channel right now, and hit subscribe, by the way, to the Stock Market Crash channel. I'll have a live stream on this channel at about 8 p.m. Pacific tonight. My live streams are epic. Be here. They're awesome. The best, most amazing chat. It's awesome. And if you want, like I said, if you want to support my work, my Patreon is below. Hit subscribe, by the way, to the Stock Market Crash channel. We're going to have a devastating stock. We're seeing it in slow motion, but it's going to be devastating. 2,000 to 3,000 point drops in the Dow. Bitcoin will get to 10,000. And I explained why we're heading into a recession, and I predicted all of this in my Federalist article late last year in October. And if you want to read my writing in The Hill, the Huffington Post, Salon, the Jerusalem Post, the Federalist, other publications, go to hagoodman.com. If you're going to go ahead and condemn Joe Rogan, you better condemn Jimmy Kimmel in the same manner. And Whoopi Goldberg. And Hunter Biden. And everyone at Justin Trudeau did something. You can look at the litany, okay? Alec Baldwin ended someone's life. He's now in another film. It's been 4 months. He hasn't apologized, and he feels no regret. And this is as he pulled the hammer back less than 2 feet away from a human being. He definitely did something else to it. But the armor was not in the church with him there or in the building. And there was a protest of camera crew. And the camera crew was then replaced by non-union labor. We can go on forever. The hypocrisy is never ending. But see, you're not leveling. If you don't level the same, and there are other podcasters who've used that horrible word also on the left now. Okay? Okay, Bernie Sanders had to unendorse a candidate. Unendorse. I have to unendorse you. Because of his writing that contained similar words. Okay? We don't have to get into that. Because the receipts, the litany of hypocrisy and duplicitous behavior and disingenuous behavior is endless. Is it wrong to use the word? Absolutely it is. Is it wrong to only level the intensity and the magnitude of condemnation and judgment only at one political side just because you want to silence them? Yeah, that's wrong. That's wrong. One could make a case that with the intent, what Whoopi Goldberg said, with the intent, because she was trying to enlighten the world with an absurd revisionist history, okay? One could say that it was worse than what Joe Rogan did. Within the context, and there were a couple like segments within clips of him talking about a brain, the difference between. I think that he was trying to reference or in some way. I have no clue. Okay, that does not sound good, but I don't think he was talking about biology. I don't know. I have no clue. I mean, a lot of these clips, the context is not addressed. Maybe he was talking about a mindset, which could then be, a comedic viewpoint or some kind of satirical view. I don't know. I have no clue. But he wasn't engaging in this, diatribe and trying to teach morality and history like Whoopi Goldberg was. My point is the Spotify CEO is not going to, no matter what is surfaced, ever jettison Joe Rogan. Because Joe Rogan is the only person. He's one of the few people, okay? He's one of the. Lex Friedman is another. There's numerous people out there. Okay, Brett Weinstein. There's numerous people. There's only a handful of people, let's say, where they just have discussions. That's all they do. They just have discussions and talk, and that's a lost art. Okay, they just have discussions, and all they do is talk, and different viewpoints are offensive. Everything is offensive now, but you know what? What's not offensive is a joke that Madam Secretary made. Okay, pertaining to, I think it was a joke regarding Eric Holder. Okay, this was with being interviewed several years back. When you're condemning and judging, and you're not condemning everyone the same, and you're not judging everyone the same, and you're being a little bit more lenient, although you're still devouring your own, you're being a little bit more lenient, or a lot more lenient when it's Jimmy Kimmel or others, you're being a hypocrite. And that's why the attempt to silence people never works when it comes to Joe. You can't silence Joe Rogan because there's no malice within him. There's no sinister element within him. There's no nasty agenda. His goal is not to preach about morality, while at the same time, ignoring the fact that if you want to talk about an impact on society, there's an actor who paid two people to stage a crime. No mention of that, though. It's completely different. No, that had to do with the subject matter. That had everything to and that would have then painted half the country who voted for President Trump as, even more deplorable than you ever imagined. So, in our society, what's taking place is one political side claiming to oppose, authoritarian regimes, while at the same time, as they claim to oppose Trump and his authoritarian tendencies, they want to actively silence under the absurd notion that that nobody is free from consequences except their own political side, and then when they want to devour their own, they can, but not in the same manner as they do against their political opponents. Then the outrage goes through the roof, and they forget and they forgive. I mean, Hunter Biden was forgiven in less than a second. I mean, you want to talk? Joe Biden said, "You are not who you are if you don't vote for him." And I'm trying to be respectful, so I won't use the actual quote. If you're to the left of the political divide, you get away with anything. You will get away with anything. And you will be defended. But if you were to the right of center, it's, oh my God, the sky is falling. How dare you? Now, I do agree. The clips of Joe Rogan, it doesn't look good at all. The context is completely missing, and even though there is no context, and I agree with that, and he said the same thing, you can't say that word, and I agree with that. I agree with that, 100%. There was no malice, and there was no, he wasn't preaching. He wasn't trying to give a lesson on history, a distorted, warped lesson on history. And he wasn't performing a skit in the most disrespectful manner. And he wasn't writing an email like the president's son to his lawyer, numerous times mentioning the word and also mentioning very bizarre statements. I'm not even going to get into the statements. I mean, if you're going to level consequences because of speech, then make sure they're the same consequences all around. And that's not what's taking place. That's not what's taking place. Like I said, Bernie Sanders had to unendorse a candidate, but that candidate isn't being that YouTuber is not being silenced. So the ultimate objective here is to silence one man. Why? Because millions upon millions of people enjoy and find his podcast intriguing. That angers everyone at The Atlantic, The Washington Post, The New York Times, MSNBC, CNN, BuzzFeed, Vanity Fair, Esquire, New York Magazine, New Yorker, all the brass at Twitter, all the social media algorithms, everything. It angers because they can't intimidate 73 million or 80 million Americans, 73 million Americans. And they can't possibly imagine why the ideas or the discussion or the debate or the information found within his podcasts resonates with millions of people. And so that's why they try to obsessively fact check everything. And the fact checks themselves are just, oh, we found somebody who has a different opinion. Or it will be an omission, a lie by omission within the fact check. Anyway, give me your thoughts below. Is it wrong to use the word? Yes. Yes. Have liberals used that word without any consequence? Yes. And again, like, I could get far more into the examples than I did. So if you watch this long and you're like an ideologue, very interesting also, The Rock, there was one person on Twitter, he's this activist or whatever, this liberal democratic, let's say activist or operative or whatever. And he said, do you still endorse Joe Rogan? And then the Rock immediately said, oh, after I saw the video, I don't. Well, okay. Does that activist or does that person on Twitter disavow what Hunter Biden said? Or Jimmy Kimmel did? Or what Whoopi Goldberg said? I mean, these are all people. Or how about, what does he think of Alec Baldwin accidentally ending a woman's life and then blaming her for telling him to pull the hammer back? I mean, the political side with the most corruption, I mean, at this point, the Bush Republicans had the most corruption in the early 2000s. The political side with the most corruption and hypocrisy is the left. In this, maybe it'll change 10 years from now. Or 20 years from now, whenever. The pendulum always swings. Before it was the Bush Republicans. They would condemn and preach and talk about democracy being whatever is good for their political party, and now it's the Democratic Party. Same thing. Democracy is redefined as whatever is good for them. And normality and sanity and everything goodness is redefined as whatever their sensibilities deem good. And you know what? They'll ignore any accusations against them, but you know what? Focus only on Trump. Meanwhile, we're heading towards a stock market crash. And wealth inequality is going to be far worse than it is now. Poverty rate for everyone is going to go up. And I explain why Democratic policies in the Federalist last year, I predicted all of this, directly led to what's taking place. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now. There was a world that we used to live in. When I grew up, it was sticks and stones may break my bones, but bad words will never hurt me. And that has morphed into free speech has consequences, but only consequences against my political opponents. Definitely not against definitely not against the most powerful on my political side. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now. Subscribe to the Stock Market Crash channel. And again, categorically, it is wrong to say the word in any context. Joe Rogan apologized for that. But Spotify is not going to. They didn't pay him tens of millions of dollars because, a bunch of people on the left want him silenced. And so if the Republican Party, or even if Joe Rogan could, I mean, he's so much smarter than this, or he's so much better of a person. But okay, now if you want to do a compilation of all the terrible things that everyone from Jimmy Kimmel to Hunter to Madam Secretary to other, the $20 million venture capital people said in their writing, to Joy Reid, what she said and then blamed the Russians for hacking her account. I mean, the list is endless because the hypocrisy is endless. You want to make a clip of that? It will easily rival and probably be more offensive or just as offensive than the Joe Rogan compilation that, who knows, that Democrats or liberal Democrats or whatever, people who wanted him silenced, compiled. It'll be far worse, actually, because you will find instances of that word used without any condemnation from the left by people who are liberal Democrats. Anyway, give me your thoughts below. Like I said, 100 million%, you cannot use the word. in any context if you're not black or African American. I understand that. But don't hide behind this phony principle that, oh, you're not free from consequences. Well, level the same consequences as everyone else who is accused of that. Anyway, give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now.